Okay, so today I'm going to demonstrate how to do a gutter cleaning on a residential home from start to finish. So the first thing you want to do, anytime we're over 10 feet, it's very important that we rope up and we use fall protection. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put on our full body harness, like so. And you want to make sure it's comfortable. You don't want any area of your body to be limited, but at the same time, you don't want it so baggy that if you were to fall, it'll create some sort of an issue with pinching certain parts of your body, if you know what I mean. Anytime we go up on the roof, it's really efficient if we have everything we need all at once. So generally speaking, when we're doing our setup, we want to do everything all together, and then when we're doing the cleaning, we do all the cleaning, and when we do the takedown, we do all the takedown. It seems to work the best. It's most effective and most efficient if we do it that way. What I have here is I have buckets, scoop, a gutter rag, not a window cleaning rag, a gutter rag. It's allocated as a gutter rag. I have my rope bag with the rope and runner. I have our standard 100-foot hose with the nozzle on it, as well as our roofer's kit here. So it has everything we need: the hammer, the roof caulking, as well as the cleat and nails. Okay, so now it's time to start moving the gear towards the area that we're going to be getting onto the roof. I've already predetermined that to be at the front here, just because there's a hose that's on and working. So first step is to get all the gear to the place where we're going to be getting on to the roof. And for this job, the 24-foot ladder is going to be sufficient. I'm going to put the standoff bars one set down. We're going to watch out for those power lines coming through. The first thing you want to do is test the water to make sure that you have something that's connected to a water source. Anytime you connect a hose, it's wise to turn it on. You don't want to get up on the roof and find that you have no water. Now it's time to get everything up onto the roof itself. Notice when I set everything down, it's off to the side here. We don't want to set it over around the base of the ladder. If somebody comes down, chances are they're not going to be looking right behind them, and they could get tangled up in the equipment. So now, whatever your comfort level is, you have to get the equipment up onto the roof. It's just a matter of setting it on this side. The hose can be latched right here on the standoff bar. Notice that we have clearance from the gutter, so that's a good ladder placement. From there we can tell that the hose is gonna not get caught up on anything, which is ideal. You don't want to be up on the roof and then have issues with your hose getting tangled. Perfect. Anytime we set down equipment, it's always good to use either a roof vent or a chimney to secure it, like so. If you don't have a chimney, you can secure it on this side of a roof vent. That way, if a gust of wind picks it up, it's not going to go tumbling down as easily. From there, we want to set our roof anchor first. Anytime we're over 10 feet, we have to be roped off. So to do that, you get your cleat out. I'm going to take my glove off. It's always a good thing to have plenty of caulking, plenty of nails. You want to make sure you have the supplies that you need in order to do the job. From there, we're going to get our rope bag and we're going to latch up our rope to the anchor. Technically speaking, it has to have 5,000 pounds of resting force, and you can absolutely tell that this is not going to move easily. From there, it's a good thing to just kind of thread out your rope. Depending on how it was put away in the bag, it can be a little bit tangled until you get to the runner. Something to keep in mind when you are using fall protection, you don't want to be so far extended out that you end up landing on the ground. That's called the pendulum effect. So just because you're on a roof with a rope doesn't mean you couldn't still hit the ground below. So you just always want to be aware of that. In this circumstance, we're going to be 45 degrees out. I think it'll be fine with this size of roof. And from there, I have my bucket, and I always have a rag as well as a scoop here. First thing I like to do is just do a quick check over the gutters to see what's in them. There's really not a ton of stuff in here, and that's typical of gutters. Sometimes you win them and sometimes you lose them. I'm gonna have to pivot my runner so that I can access the edge. And as soon as I go over to the downspout, I'm just gonna scoop out what is at the downspout itself. Sometimes they're actually gummed up and water will be pooling, and until you unplug the downspout, the water won't pass through. So that's what I always like to start with. These ones are really not too bad. They could use a quick scoop out, and then basically the flush will go that much easier. Just like so. Just kind of shoving everything along the gutter. And if you get to the point where you have enough to scoop out, just kind of use your hand to get it in there. Notice how I'm kind of taking a knee on the inward side of the roof. That way my weight is evenly distributed by the time it gets up to the higher portion of my body. Or if I need to, I'm pretty stable and I'm not going to fall over. Just a fine layer of shingle grit, which sheds over time, and dust. Excellent. So that line is now scooped out. What I like to do is scoop out all the gutters first, so that we're kind of batching the chores together versus going scoop, flush, scoop, flush, scoop, flush. Just that time switching between the tasks adds up. So here again, if I depress this, it's going to allow rope to come out, and if I were to fall, it's going to engage the runner and it's not going to let me go any further. So you want to make sure you're comfortable to access the areas you're working in. Okay, so that is the scoop all done. Like I said, we're aiming to get 85 to 90% of the debris out so that everything will flush easily. So because the downspout's on that side over there, we want to start on this side and bring all of the water towards the downspout. Now, if the downspout is clogged, all this water is going to come back. So if you have two people, it's ideal to have somebody at the downspout just keeping it clear so that it can accept moisture. If you're working by yourself, you just have to be aware that once it gloms up, like it is starting to now, it really doesn't take a lot and it'll get gummed up. So you just want to keep it clear and then you're able to keep going. Pick up where you left off, right around here. And you can tell there's just kind of an accumulation of shingle grit getting pushed through the gutter line. If your pressure's weak, it's going to be much more difficult to do this. And you're going to get all the way up to about 2 feet away from the downspout. Anytime you set down your equipment, it's really important that it doesn't fall on the ground. So if you need to, just gently hang this on the gutter, or if the hose was up on the roof, you could just set it down as long as it's not going to fall over. And there I'm going to grab my bucket and my rag with my scoop, and I'm just going to take care of that accumulation of shingle grit before it goes down the downspout. Lots of times this feeds right into the underground drainage system, so you don't want to flush that all down and potentially plug it up before it gets to the road. It's not really designed to take on a lot of solid debris, so you want to do what you can. If you get it kind of to that point, that should be fine. We're going to flush it all the way to the end. Now this is fairly convenient having the downspout on the end like this, but what I'm going to show you is how valuable the rag can actually be when you're cleaning gutters. So essentially, as I'm flushing it, the water's going, the rag can act as kind of a stopper so that the water doesn't go all the way back. Particularly if you have a downspout in the middle of a line, it's good to be able to flush all the way, put your rag down, and then flush back. Otherwise you get stuck going back and forth, back and forth. So now what I would do, imagine this was a line that continued on. We would start our flush coming this way, and it would only go to 6 inches past the downspout, and then it would be done. So now I can kind of double back. Like so. It's all controlled, and it's kind of just a couple motions. Then from there, I'm just going to get rid of this fine amount of shingle grit, like so. The whole idea of a gutter cleaning is that we're able to allow water to get through to the downspout, which is definitely the case at this point. So that line would be considered flushed out now. If you ever get to the point where you have an amount of hose up on the roof and it starts to go off, it's going to make a really loud noise. And the worst thing you can do is react. You know, I've seen guys in the past, they'll jump if they hear the hose coming, rolling off the roof. And all you have to simply do is brace yourself. You know, the hose is just a standard garden hose. It only weighs 4 or 5 pounds when it's full. But the worst thing you can do is over-exaggerate what's going on. And it is loud, and it kind of whips around, but just brace yourself and grab it as it goes off, and you'll be absolutely fine. This side has now been scooped, so it's time to give it a flush.
The downspout is actually on this side, so I just want to make sure that it's able to take the water from the flush. So sometimes it's good to just give it a quick blast out before you go on the other side and come back with the flush. As I'm flushing, I'm getting my footing and making sure I'm comfortable before I continue on. It's always super important. And as you can tell, the downspout is starting to gum up again. So I'm just gonna clear out the little pieces of debris. We're about 2 feet away, so I'm gonna scoop out that amount of sediment before it goes down the downspout. And I'm simply gonna scoop out the accumulation of debris. Not a ton there, but still, we don't want it to go down the downspout. Okay, so we finished the scooping and the flushing. Basically, all the water is now able to flow through right through to the downspout, and that's the gutter clean. Now it's time to gather up our gear and demobilize is what we call it. So you want to be very aware when you're still on the roof that you need to be protected with fall protection when you're breaking down your gear as much as possible. The safety gear is the last stuff to come down. So first things first, we want to get the hose lowered down onto the ground. Like so. Anytime there's a nozzle, they are breakable, so it's good to just lower it down first. And that's what I was talking about when the hose starts to run. You want to be very careful that there's no one down below, and you can throw the majority of the hose down. The gutter bucket can rest up against the standoff bar, and that's basically it. Now we're to a point where we can disconnect the runner from our full body harness and from the anchor point. And what I like to do is just wind it up so that it comes out easily the next time we need to use it. And then it goes right into the rope bag. And we want to make this as convenient and quick as possible. You know, if everything's in the right order and we have lots of stock to do with the fall protection gear, then it's just simply not as much of a mental jump in order to use this stuff. The last thing we have to do is we have to take down our fall protection cleat. Now, the way you do that is you use the hammer, get it right behind the full cleat itself to just kind of get it started on either side. And then that's going to allow you a little bit of room to get in to remove the nails. They are masonry nails, so we're able to reuse them. They're pretty thick. I like to keep them right on the side here so they're easy to find. Put the hammer back in the case, and then we use Black Gold Ultimate Roof Repair caulking. Because as soon as we remove this, you're going to see the holes that were put inside the customer's roof. Now if we tar them up properly, it won't be an issue. And what you want to do is just slowly pull back the trigger to dispense the caulking and kind of ooze it in. If it's a warm day, this stuff turns to pretty much liquid. But if it's colder, it sometimes gloms up a little bit. So you just want to make sure that the holes that were made are totally covered up with the roof caulking. A little bit of downward pressure is really good, and it is extremely sticky stuff, so you don't want to get it on your skin if you can avoid it. So I'm using a fairly healthy amount. We don't want it to stick out from the road. And I'm going to get this one here. When I'm done with it, I'm going to just depress this little tab here, and that's going to stop the pressure pushing the caulking out at the end of the gun. So something like that. The holes are properly covered, and they're never going to have an issue with the roof leaking. What we're going to implement going forward is we're going to have a WhatsApp chat that's specifically designated to patching the holes, because we want to make sure that it's done properly every single time. So what you would do is you would take a picture of this, you would send it to the group with a text reading the address, and then it can just sit there. If it's ever questioned in the future, we have a comprehensive list of all the patches that we've done for the roof. From there, the cleat goes back into the fall kit, and we're going to grab the roof bag and make our way slowly to the edge of the roof where the ladder is. When you're stepping over, just do it ever so gently, and you want to do it very systematically. Coming down, you want to be aware of what's behind you. Make sure that nobody set anything behind. And when you get to the bottom, set the equipment that you just brought down off to the side. Got one more load to do, bringing the gutter bucket down. And it can be heavy, so just prepare yourself for it. When these things are full, they're probably 60 or 70 pounds. And then we're good to go. Depending on the debris that was in there, the flushing might have made a bit of a mess on the outside of the gutter. So at this point, before you disconnect your hose, it's good to do a quick walk around and just hose off the outside of the gutter in case there's any oversplash. This one really wasn't too bad, but sometimes they can be quite a mess. Additionally, anytime the downspout comes down onto the grass, this one feeds directly into the tube, but if it were to come onto the grass, you would just simply grab the debris and put it into the debris bucket and kind of just hose down the grass where it once was. That way it's nice and clean. We don't have a huge puddle mess of gutter debris at the downspout. Past that, it's just a matter now of getting everything back to the van, and usually it takes a couple trips. Now what we want to do is we want to disconnect the hose. So to do that, shut off the pressure, and sometimes it's pretty tight to get off if it's still charged. So what you can do is, it's called bleeding the hose. So simply grab the nozzle and just let the pressure dissipate like so. Now it'll be no problem to undo the hose from the tap. You want to make sure the tap's fully off. We never want to leave a dripping tap. And then it's time to wind up the hose.
Okay, so we got kind of a cool way to roll up the hose here. After it's been disconnected, what you want to do first and foremost is you want to depress the nozzle so that It's not creating a vacuum seal, and all the water that's in the hose is able to flush through. From there, you want to make sure you're on the highest point of the ground. If it's flat ground, that's good enough because of the working height. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep the hose nozzle depressed, and it's called the crazy man. So you're going to come across, back and forth, and it's going to kind of wind up the hose like so, in a way that's really going to unravel easily. So I'm just kind of coming across, back and forth. And all the water is seeping out the end of the hose, which is a good thing. It gets really heavy. And you're gonna do it until you get to within about 10 feet of the end. You're gonna slip your left arm out. I still have the nozzle depressed and all the water's out, so you can now let that go. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna still hold on to the end, and I'm just gonna spin my arm around like so to kind of bind up what I just did. When you get within 2 or 3 feet of the end, this end tab is gonna go right up in through the middle, and that's gonna choke on itself, and then it's good to go. It's nice and tight and organized, and it's not gonna come unraveled when it goes back in the van. The final thing that I want to demonstrate in regards to the gutter cleaning is what to do when the roof is a steep slope gutter clean. Anything over a 512 grade is going to require that we do not walk on the roof. It's going to be simply too steep in order to keep traction while you're doing the cleaning. The way you approach that is essentially use standoff bars, and you work from the ladder itself. So you're just going to basically scoop out all the debris first. This works really well if you're working with a buddy or a teammate, because you can cover a lot more ground more quickly, but also when it comes time to the flushing, one guy can be flushing and one guy can be right up at the downspout. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go back and forth as soon as the downspout gets plugged, which is fine. You can do what you gotta do. From the ladder itself, you can generally reach 3 or 4 feet on either side, as well as what's directly beneath. So I'm just gonna, this is where the downspout actually is, and that's why I'm starting here. It goes a little slower for sure, but it's not, it's not too brutal. You want to get as much as you can comfortably. Remember, the rule with the ladders is you got to keep your belt buckle between the two sides of the ladder. So you don't want to be so extended that you're way over in case the ladder was ever to slip out. So I've gotten everything from the right, everything from the middle, and everything to the left. Now I'm going to come down with the bucket, and I'm going to move the ladder over. And I'm gonna set the bucket down behind the standoff bar. Now the idea is, I actually got right here on my last movement. So the idea is you wanna be kind of pushing yourself, but you don't wanna be too far away in between your moves. Otherwise, you're gonna have to move the ladder back so that you can make sure you get every part of the gutter. Another approach that works really well is if you have the extension pole. Depending on the type of debris, you can roll up the rag, put it in the gutter, and then push it through with the extension pole. It really comes down to what type the debris is, and whether it'll just kind of glom up and spill over, or if it'll push. Certainly, there are some jobs where that's invaluable and it works super well. But other than that, this is how you approach a non-walkable or a steep gutter clean. We don't walk on them. We simply approach them by using the ladder, and we're able to get, I would say 10 feet per ladder move. So really, it does move fairly quickly. It's just a little bit more labor intensive because you have to move the ladder and work from the ladder exclusively. And so that's the entire gutter clean. Basically, that one was certainly straightforward. It allowed us to get out all the debris and then flush them clean so that the water is able to pass right through to the downspout. That's the whole idea of a gutter cleaning. And gutters are meant to partition the water to the downspouts. The gutter cleaning is just kind of a maintenance task in order to allow that. We were able to use our fall protection equipment, and everything's really straightforward when you have all the equipment and materials that you require. When it's not fun is when you're running up and down the ladder, looking for equipment, trying to find nails, wrong type of caulking. That is not a fun job to be a part of. If you're prepared and you have all your equipment and materials that you'll require, it really goes quite quickly. That entire home took me about 30 minutes to do. I used fall protection as I was supposed to, and the quality of the gutter cleaning was exactly what we were looking for. So as you can tell, when you have two people on the crew, things go very smoothly. It's a very fast-paced environment, and you're able to work together as a team to expedite the process that much more. All in all, I really don't mind gutter cleaning. Compared to the window cleaning, it's got a little bit more physical requirements, but I don't mind it. Certainly, you never have a quality concern. It's either clean or it's not, and it's not so picky as window cleaning can sometimes be. So yeah, it's not a bad job at all.